Okay, so I've got my roof form there, which is at a fairly unusual angle, and I maybe want to have a ceiling that follows that slope rather than having a flat ceiling going through that space there. So I'll just start by going to firstly, notice I'm in the section view, and I'm going to select the ceiling there, and then I can still switch back to level 1, and that ceiling should be still selected. And that's a pretty important technique if you're not used to that. So if you're in the habit of just clicking out of habit, then you'll lose those little things, those selections, which should help you a lot. So by doing that, now I can choose Edit Boundary after having selected the ceiling in section. And I'm just going to then fix my shape. And so now, if I look back in the section view, you can see the ceiling's been brought back. You might have even realised there that in that level 1 view, I can't actually see the ceiling even where that edge should be exposed. So a little thing I'll show you there while you're in that that ceiling plan that's pretty important when you start to work with ceiling plan views. You can see there we've got, again, ground floor, and then level 1 are my only 2 ceiling plans that matter. Do you think I need that level 1 ceiling plan? If we look at the section view, again, just want to get you thinking about how ceiling plans actually work. So you've got the ground floor, level 1, and then level 1 ceiling, and my 3 levels. So Revit's automatically made ground floor, level 1, and then level 1 ceiling in my ceiling plans. But which ceiling plans do you actually need out of those 3? I'll give you a hint. You need 2 of them. 1 of them you don't need at all. How many? Just to work generally. So again, just want to be thinking about the design drawings you should be working with. Which reflected ceiling plans would you need in a project like this?
The ones where you're going to put lights.
Lights, yep. So what would they be called? Just in general.
Ceiling floor level 1.
Yeah, not even thinking about Revit, just thinking about what they'd be called. So, yeah, you have ground floor reflected ceiling plan and level 1 reflected ceiling plan. Right? So they're your 2 reflected ceiling plans. You don't need level 1 ceiling. And that's a common misunderstanding. You'll see level 1 ceiling and think, I'm working on a ceiling, I need level 1 ceiling to work on my ceiling. When, if you think about what it actually would give you, it's, here, this is my level 1 ceiling. So the level 1 ceiling plan is going to be looking up into empty space. So
Why do we have, like just with the floor plans, we've got 0, 1, floor, level 1. Why don't we call it ground floor?
You can, that's what I've called it.
Oh, so should we do that?
Yeah, you put the numbers in just to keep them in order, but if you give them names like ground floor and then level 1, level 2, then they'll be in order anyway.
Because at the beginning I remember we didn't do that. What was the American?
Yeah, that was just to get you used to naming levels and floor plans.
It's got ground floor in it. This is brand new.
Yeah, ground floor should be your starting. Yep. 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 So the main thing to realise there is that we don't need that ceiling plan. It's just going to be confusing. So you can right click and delete any floor plan or ceiling plan, and it won't delete objects. They belong to the levels. So the level's still there. Now, what about this one? Level 1 ceiling in my floor plans. Do you think I need that?
Level 1 ceiling.
Possibly. It could be useful. Maybe if I want to be drawing up here and putting things on top of the ceiling for some reason. But otherwise, we probably don't need that either. So I can delete that too. So the final thing there, back to the views that I do need, level 1 ceiling in my ceiling plan, also level 1 in my ceiling plans. So I started on this last week but didn't get to finish it off. We've got the ceiling finishing here. You know that if you just saw what I did. I've changed the ceiling. So don't worry about trying to do it while I'm doing it. Just have a look at what's happening. So here you can see. All right, guys. So you probably they can stop talking. So, okay. So here you've got the edge of the ceiling in line with that reference plane. So looking back in the level 1 ceiling plan, that's the reference plane, and we should be able to see the edge of the ceiling there. So does anyone know why you can't see the ceiling? This is the right plan. It should be there. No, the ceiling's there. So what was that? No, the ceiling is there. The ceiling is there. Yeah, I'm on the right level. It's the right view. The ceiling should be there. So this is what you need to think about with Revit. If you know something is there, and you don't always know by looking in a certain view, we know by looking in another view, in looking in the section, there's the ceiling. It's there. Okay, there's no doubt about it. It's definitely there, and it should be visible in this view. So if you're not seeing it, it's a view setting. And that's going to happen to you all the time in Revit. You need to get used to that with ceilings particularly. So if you go down into your view properties, you'll see one of the most important options when you're working with ceilings. So skip, guys. Right, so, okay, so if you go down into your view properties, you'll see towards the bottom you have view range. Click edit there, then you'll see there's a setting for the top of the view, and you need to make that higher than where your ceiling is. So the ceiling is on this level, and we need to make that at least, 200 will be enough. If I click OK, it's actually going to give me an error because the view depth needs to be at least as high as the top. Simple thing, but if you miss that, I've seen this is the most common issue people will have with ceilings at first, not being able to find the ceilings.
Well, you have to change offset because you want to see the ceiling.
Yeah, that's right. The view has to be at least as high as the ceiling is.
But that will change the ceiling height?
No, it won't affect it. It's a view setting.
Just for the view.
So view settings don't affect the objects at all. They just change the way the view shows. So that's really important when you're working with ceilings to set the view so that you can see them. There's my ceiling now, and I can also see now part of the roof coming in. And so I'm even going to bring that higher because I'm going to make a ceiling now that is quite a bit higher than the ceiling I've already made. So I'm going to make it 2500 for both of those things. Right, guys, so you should be watching this, so yeah, know what you're doing because this is really important. And
How do I get the properties
PP, yep. Okay, so back into my section view, and now I can make the ceiling that I want that's sloped. Okay, so I've shown you this option before. If you go to the component menu or the arrow next to component, you can go to model in place to make virtually anything that you can't make with the regular tools. So it's not just to make furniture or other custom elements. You can use it to make walls, anything. So walls, floors, and other things that are larger than those, little custom elements you might be thinking of. And of course, the thing I'm going to show you now, ceilings. So when you click OK, it'll ask you for a name, so I'll call this rate ceiling. Yeah, so flat ones you just use the normal ceiling tool, but yeah.
It's like a pitched.
Exactly, sloping.
Okay, sloping.
Yeah. Okay, so now what you'll see then, if you go to make an extrusion in a view like this, then you're going to get another option that you might not be all that familiar with. Because there's no plane defined, it's going to ask you to define one. So you've got a couple of options. You can choose any planes that are already defined, but in this project I've only got levels. So they're no good. So I need to use this option, pick a plane, and that's what I want to use here. You've got to be in a section view.
I don't know how to do one section.
Okay, so I'm just going to, with that pick a plane option selected, click OK. And now I need to choose the surface that I'm trying to draw, well, not necessarily on, but at least in line with or parallel with. So here it helps to know that as you hover, it'll highlight these different planes, but you can use tab if you don't get the one you're after. So notice how there it's highlighting the wall that's behind my section view, but it's giving me the top there. I want the front. You can sometimes get it just by moving the cursor slightly, but tab will always give you the different options that you need. So can you imagine what's going to happen if I draw on that surface now?
Is that going to draw as if you draw a direct plane on the ceiling?
No. It's like we're drawing maybe on the side of this beam or on that wall over there. So we're drawing in elevation. And so if I click now, that's what I'm after. So that's, yeah. And so now, exactly. So I'm going to draw a line, and I can follow the slope of the roof. I could also offset or do any of those other things that you do with your lines in AutoCAD, and Revit has these tools as well, obviously. So with offset, I can put a thickness in, and I'm going to make this much thicker than the ceiling structure by itself would be, because I want to allow for some lights and things to go in. So I'm going to offset 200 from those lines that I've just drawn. And here I might even bring that line across so it lines up with the wall. So it's just like you're drawing in plan, but of course we're drawing perpendicular to the plan in elevation or in section. And it's one of the main principles of design. If you think about all the different building components that you need to design, many of them can be defined with a 2D shape in the plan, but a lot can't, and they need to be defined using a different plane. And so it's really important that you can define particularly a 2D profile before you even start thinking about doing full 3D modelling, that you can project things from different planes. And again, drawing in elevation or perpendicular to the ground plane is probably the most common way you'll do that. So that's the shape I want for my ceiling. Tick to finish. And so what else would you need to think about? If you've drawn the shape that you want in section for something like a raked ceiling, what's the other main property that's going to... Exactly. That's right, how far it's going to go backwards and forwards. In other words, how deep it is. So I can go back to that level 1 ceiling plan now, and because I set the view up before, I should be able to see that, and I can select it. Often you don't even need to type in the height, because you can just use these arrows to stretch and take it across as far as you need it to. Alright, so I'm going to finish that ceiling, and then show you now what will happen if I load in some other families. So back to component, and then hopefully you're getting used to using load family to bring in different things. And so later on tonight we'll start to look more at lighting. And so you'll see if you bring a light that's ceiling hosted, and most of them are, maybe I'll get the downlight here, just the downlight spot will do. So if I place that on a flat ceiling, just put a few of those there, they'll follow that. If I put these on my sloping ceiling, they'll follow it. So back into the section view, so you can see there we've got these lights basically pointing perpendicular to the ground. But these others, again, following that slope. Okay, so it's important that you can use that option to set up things, especially if you're doing something in a different plane. But don't overuse it. So maybe the last thing I'll say there is, model in place, great tool for all kinds of modelling. So I've shown you, obviously that modelling we did at the beginning.
Is that part of ceiling? You can just do the sketch
Yeah, of course, yeah.
rather than model in place.
Well, that is model in place. It's the same thing. Model in place gives you the sketch options when you go and make an extrusion or any of those solid shapes. So, and that's really why you're using model in place. I'll just choose any category. Okay, so it's basically there so that you can get these solid modelling tools: extrusion, blend, revolve, sweep, blend. Those 5 tools.
Okay, so we choose the model thing, we
Yep.
select what we want to do,
Yeah,
we rename it, or whatever.
yeah.
Then do we, this is where I get lost, do we extrude or do we use model 1 to get the...
Yeah, you do extrusion. Yeah, so you need to be in your section view and then making an extrusion. Yeah. No, definitely don't want model lines. Okay, so again, that's really why you're doing it, and that's the way you need to be thinking. You're using model in place to get these solid modelling tools. But then the last thing I'll say there, a very bad habit that a lot of people then develop is to use model in place every time they need to make some furniture piece or something that they're designing. Yeah, it's a really bad habit, and I'll show you why. I'll just get a more complex project up. So you're just creating work for yourself. So if you do, and I'll show you why. With really simple to understand once you see something that's a bit more involved. Oh yeah, definitely. So if you don't have it, you can make it. So I'm just going to get and we're going to be doing more of that as we go through. So here I've got a file that's got maybe a bit more detail than you'll be doing for this project, but again, just you're thinking about the different options you have.
Don't tell me I deleted my room. Or it's just like a warning saying, are you sure you want to delete this?
Yeah, I'll have a look at that in a second. Yeah. So I've just got here anyway a view of a project that's maybe got a bit more detail, and the main thing I suppose that you can look at there, let's get one that's maybe looking, where are we? Here we are. Okay, so a bit more detail than you'd probably be doing, but maybe these, especially the furniture pieces, are things you'd want to be doing. And so if you think about those, for this chair, for example, that's something that you'll be able to model before too long. If you use model in place, and say you've got a few of them, so let's look at this. Okay, so chances are you're going to have a few of those chairs. If you use model in place, every time you need to make a change, you'd have to select it, go edit in place, change this one, then finish it, go and select the next one, edit in place, change it, go to the next one. If you've got 100 of them in your project, you're never going to finish that. So the other option to think about, instead of using model in place, you have the option to make a separate family file. And you'll realise before long, let's go back to that file that I was in, or even I'll just show you here. When you're working in a separate family file, you have those same options. It's no different to using model in place. So that's the last thing I was hoping you can start to think about. And as you bring in families from the library, let's close this one now. So just be a moment. Okay, so as you start to use things like the lights I was just showing you, you'll realise that you can easily change them using the same techniques that you use with model in place. So if I go into my section view where I can see those lights, select one of them, edit family, and then you can see we've got those same modelling tools. And if I make changes and I want to leave this file as it is, which is normally what you should do, you can just save it as a new file, and then you've got your own custom family and you can do what you want with it. Yeah, so you can make a new family from scratch. That takes a bit more practice, and we'll go further into that later on. So what I'd recommend at first, though, is that you try and find something that's similar to what you want and modify that. So what are you thinking of? A high back what, though? Chair. Okay, so it might not be the same shape that you want, but if you just find almost any chair in the Revit library, if we go to furniture, you'll find there are hundreds of chairs in there. And it doesn't need to be anything really that close to what you're trying to make, but just find something that's vaguely similar. Is it timber, the one you want? Yeah. Yep, okay, so just find a lounge chair. So, well, even that one I just showed you. It's not the same shape, but it may have similar materials. And then you can easily delete things you don't want. Delete most of this stuff. And then this, I can edit and change into a circular shape. And use that as the basis and even get rid of all these lines. And at least you're going to have some of the work done for you because the material options are going to be similar, the parameters are set up. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background that you won't know at first. So that's still a better way of doing it. So if you can find something that's even vaguely similar. Yeah, we'll just do it simplified at first. So what you could do is just make little, again, extrusions and use maybe the ellipse tool to give you basic shapes. Oh, I'll show you in a second. I'll come over and have a look. Okay, so that'll give you a starting point. Doing the rounded top is going to be pretty complicated, but you can at least do that to get the basic setup. And that's the other key with families. Don't try and do everything if you don't know how to do it. Just do something that's almost a placeholder. So here, I can bring those around. Get something reasonably close to what you're looking at. And then load that in, get a feel for the scale in the space, and then later on you can have a go at modelling the extra detail. And the point of really everything I've been talking about is when you're thinking about the different approaches to working with families in Revit, okay, so I can save this as something else. So normally you want to save it into your own folder. Oops, sorry, not there, CAD for interiors. So I'll call this chair, padded, whatever. Load into project. And I'm going to place it. Notice it's got the square things. That's from the other one, obviously. Okay, so I can place as many of these as I like. And then if I go and select one, edit family, there are the lines that were causing the problem, making it look obviously like a square thing that I don't want. So I'm just going to delete those. Okay, so just going through getting rid of all those extra things. Okay, so it's just deleting things. And then, again, save the file, load into project, and they're all going to change. And that's really the key to it. Not trying to do everything at once, but mostly thinking about the way things are managed. So this thing here, this extrusion, again, you won't know this at first, but that was just, it's still there, but it was just set not to display in the plan. But I can easily again go back and edit that one file, and those changes are going to come through to all of them. So, yep, so